So there I was. I wanted to cut back on my drinking. It was getting in the way of my life. I couldn't function. I couldn't work correctly. I was hungover all the time. And overall, my health was completely deteriorating. And so I had resolved. I talked to therapists. I talked to counselors. I said, this is the time I'm going to cut back on my drinking. And I was serious. I meant it more than anything. I wanted to cut back. And everyone that I talked to said, maybe you need to quit. Maybe you should just stop altogether. You need to quit drinking. And I thought to myself, so I want to cut back and make my life better. And your answer is stop drinking alcohol for the rest of your life. No questions asked. Quit right now. And I thought, I'm sorry. That's just something I'm not able to do. And it was very difficult because everyone seemed to think that that was the only answer. I couldn't moderate. I couldn't drink on weekends. I had to quit completely, or so they said. And that's what we're going to talk about today. If you're there and alcohol is damaging your life, if you find yourself with health issues, legal problems, unable to quit drinking, unable to moderate drinking, maybe you plan out and you say, hey, I'm only going to have 3 tonight. And then you wake up in the morning wondering where all the alcohol went. As he says in the movie, why is the rum always gone? And I remember talking to someone recently who was gauging whether someone was an alcoholic, and they were saying, this person has a bottle of wine and it's been there for a week. And I said, well, as an alcoholic, a bottle of wine lasted about 2 hours in my house.
Yeah.
And of course, it's different for everyone. But the thought of quitting completely terrified me. How many of you guys in the comments and in the chat box feel like this is a task that you're not going to be able to do? Quit drinking for the rest of my life? I mean, when I got sober, I was 34 years old. Are you telling me for the next 60 years, if I'm really lucky, maybe 70 if I'm super lucky, I can't drink anything? What about at my daughter's marriage, wedding? What about at a celebration? What if I accidentally drink something? Are you telling me that I can't even look at alcohol anymore? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. And I think for those of you who are struggling, this is going to be a breath of fresh air because I found myself where you're at. I didn't want to quit. It was the only thing that kept my life together, but also destroyed it at the same time. So how are we going to take that away, and how is that going to be helpful? So, Terry, how you doing today, and what are your thoughts on the topic here? And also, how's our audio quality?
Well, I'm doing all right. And for me, the audio quality is great. But I don't know about the listeners. Um, as far as our subject goes, quit drinking forever. Yeah, that was a big, big fear of mine. Absolutely. I was so afraid. Big Nasty, he can hear. He's good. Um, I it was huge for me. Is I can't drink anymore ever again. I mean, I my favorite thing to do every year was a thing called Wine Passport, and every year they'd close all the wineries in this one area to the public, and you buy tickets, and there was live bands, and there was food, and it was super fun. And I'd go with the intention of buying a couple bottles of wine, and I'd come home with 10 cases and things like that. And it was a party, and I knew which winery had the party that went the latest so I could stay late. And that was what I looked forward to, and I can never do that again. Those were my friends. Actually, a lot of them still are friends. I just don't go drinking with them. But it was huge. That was a big challenge for me when I was thinking about getting sober, and that was a huge challenge for me while I was going through the process of getting sober, as far as hitting that bottom and going to rehab, and thinking that now I can never drink again. At least that's what they seem to be telling me, or at least that's what they're insinuating. And for me, that was big. I wanted to stop. And you know, thinking about it, and think about other things that might be in our lives. And a big one is something like cigarettes. But there's other things that we might be, kind of addicted to. I know probably a lot of us are kind of addicted to, like, social media, things like that. And could we ever give that up? I don't know. I know some people that have. I still look at social media. I don't know that I use it addictively. I probably look at it way too much. But let's talk about cigarettes, because cigarettes has a lot of similarities to alcohol as far as it's highly addictive. It's very, very difficult to quit. And, in fact, a lot of friends of mine that are sober alcoholics have said that quitting cigarettes was worse for them. But some have said it wasn't as bad as alcohol. It really depends on the particular person. But there are a lot of similarities. Now, let me tell you a little bit of a story. Just like my mom, she smoked her whole life. I mean, with that, not her whole life, but she did quit towards those last, I don't know, decade or two. She quit, but but she was in that age group where cigarettes was pretty much most a lot of people smoked, and it was pretty much socially acceptable and things like that. And she smoked for years and years and years and years. And one day, her doctor told her that you need to stop smoking. And she was smoking every day, pack a day, whatever it was. I don't know what she was smoking. I was pretty young, but she was smoking a lot. And one day she just quit. And was she grumpy? Yeah, she was grumpy. Absolutely. But she quit and she never smoked again. And cigarettes, they are highly addictive. They're and for people that do smoke regularly, it's kind of a way to take a break from life, a little relaxer. I'm going to go have a smoke and step away from work or whatever it is. I got to go relax because I'm in a stressful situation. That's a similar thing with alcohol. That's a similar thing that many of us have used alcohol for, is to take that break. And nowadays cigarettes are they are kind of shunned. So there's a little bit of a difference there as far as you can't smoke in a restaurant. A lot of times you might be smoking somewhere and somebody's like, get that away from me, that sort of thing. And but a difference from alcohol and cigarettes is you can still drive a car, you can go to work. And a lot of people, this isn't everyone, but when they're told that they have to quit for a health reason or some other reason, they usually quit, you know. And where alcohol, it's like cigarettes, it's highly addictive. It gives us that feeling of relief. It's really socially acceptable in the right situation. Work isn't going to be saying, yeah, you're having a beer, that's cool. No, they're not going to be, accepting that much. So, but after you get off work, people go have a drink. A lot of people, they get off work and they go to the bar across the street and have a couple cocktails with their coworkers and go home. So, it's more socially acceptable. We see the ads on TV for alcohol, and everybody's at the beach having fun and they have whatever alcohol there to make it more fun. And it's acceptable. But alcoholism though it's kind of shunned. Most people that don't understand alcoholism, they're like, why don't you just quit? That's I've heard that many times. Alcohol's a problem for you, just stop. And I'd be, oh, okay, that's a good idea. And I'd try and stop, and it wouldn't work. I'd start drinking again. I mean, I don't know if any of you relate to this, but that's certainly how it went for me.
Yeah.
Nobody understood it. And
No, no, nobody understands it.
right. And and the one big difference with alcohol, especially for me, but I know a lot of people that went through this as well, is when they were pushed to quit, like a doctor said, you need to stop drinking. A lot of alcoholics don't stop. That was
Mm.
me. I was told to stop, and I didn't stop. There's a difference there. Cigarettes, and there's people that may not agree with me here, but cigarettes aren't going to take over your brain the way alcohol is going to. You know, you're going to be able to, you, you can find a way out. You might need some help. You might need a smoking cessation, a group class or something like that. And you
Mhm.
really have to have a lot of willpower, and you have to have a lot of, you have to be conscious about it. Alcohol is similar in that way, that you have to be conscious that you're trying to stop, but it has also taken over your brain. It's taken over your decisions, and it gives us the littlest reason will make us drink again. And that's, I've heard one analogy. It's not the big thing that makes you drink again. It's that broken shoelace, that makes you drink again. And a lot of times it's really as simple as that. It takes over your mind, and it's a really difficult thing. Now, what does that have to do with quitting drinking forever? Well, that's just kind of as far as I don't want to have to go through that process of trying to quit again. Now, right now, I've developed this life where I don't think about drinking. I don't think about that drink. I do think about alcohol and the fact that I can't drink it. I have to keep that in my mind because I do have to be careful. Marcus had mentioned earlier, what if I accidentally drink it? Well, that's not as much of a worry for me anymore. If I do accidentally drink it, then I'm going to deal with it at that point. But right now, today, in front of me, I'm not drinking. And I haven't had a drink in quite a while. And for the rest of today, I don't plan on drinking. And that's kind of the way I look at it, as far as that goes. Now, do I have to quit drinking forever? They tell me I do. At least that's what the doctors say. The addiction people, the addiction specialists, they say I have to stop drinking forever unless I want to get that horrible life I had back, that I can start drinking again. For me, it's a quick way to check out of the world, really, if I started drinking again. So, that's what I'd have to go through. But the way I look at it is right now, I don't plan on drinking. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. What are your thoughts there, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was really terrifying. We're getting a bigger echo. Is the echo on me or Terry? But I remember with me, it was terrifying to think about, oh my gosh, I have to quit drinking for the rest of my life. But as time went on, I would say after like the first 2 years, it seemed to subside, and then I stopped caring about it because I realized I didn't need it. Like the fact that I was so worried that I couldn't drink the rest of my life was the alcohol talking. That was a big one. And like Dave says, people would ask me, why don't you just stop? I tried many times to control or cut back, but it never worked for me. And that's what people don't understand. It's not about willpower. If it was about willpower, we'd all be able to stop because, I mean, we have willpower. We're the kind of people that's like, like last night, my daughter got in a wreck and, my wife's like, come on, let's go. And I'm like, I have to have pants and shoes on before I go. I can't go out in my pajamas, even though it was like literally less than a half a mile from the house. And I threw my pants on and everything. And that's the kind of person I am, right? But when it came to alcohol, oh boy, I'd go with one sock, a half a shoe, and I didn't care. It's like I got to go to the liquor store. That's what I need to do. And it really, you realize after a couple years of being sober how crazy it was that you thought alcohol was the solution and you were so afraid to give it up. And that's why on this channel we talk a lot about, the difference between like maybe an abusive or narcissistic loved one, maybe a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever it is, and the way that you get sucked into it and the way that you defend that abuse. And that's the same thing with alcohol. You're defending it and you're going back to it. Why? Well, much like the person who's being abused, it's a chemical change in your brain. And that's why Terry talks about, cigarettes are different because cigarettes and tobacco does not produce chemical dependency in the way that the brain works. Are they addictive? Sure. Can you be addicted to them? Yes. Can you be chemically dependent? No. I've never met someone who smoked cigarettes who thought they were going to die if they did not have cigarettes. Now, every alcoholic I've talked to who is in the grips of alcoholism felt that way. It literally was like, hey, this is how it's going to be. That's not to diminish or look at it. It's just a different thing, right?
Yeah.
It is a different thing altogether, just like someone who's on an upper is going to have a different experience than someone on a downer, right? You're going to have a different chemical experience. And when you look at that, it's different. But when you look at chemical dependency when it comes to substance abuse and things like that, right? You look at, okay, the guy who's on the upper is, hey, I'm Superman. I feel great. I don't ever want to lose this. The person with the alcohol is, hey, this helps me. This is all I know. I'm just going to keep doing it even though it's ruining my life. So both people are like, I'm going to keep doing it even though it's ruining my life right now, here, now, right? Not in the way like, oh, hey, eventually eating too many pizzas is going to, make my heart not happy, right? That's something where it's like, okay, I think if we gave up the pizza, it would not be that difficult. But with alcohol, it's changing your mind. Much like that person who is in the abusive relationship, that has changed their mind. That's why there's like, if you look online about narcissistic abuse and spouse abuse and different things like that, you will see that these people are literally changed, and the voice of reason does not reach them. The voice of reason does not reach an alcoholic. Like, no matter how much logic you have, 47,000 people every year get liver, we don't care. I sat there with the IV thing in my arm in the doctor. They said you had elevated liver. I said, that's something to drink about. I didn't care. I literally did not care. And, you start to realize, is this me or is it the alcohol? And all throughout our lives, we're going through situations like, Terry, if you look back at your life, you're like, okay, in my teen years, I was in a phase. That was a phase I was in. I believed it wholeheartedly. In our 20s, it was a phase. In our 40s, it's a phase, 30, and you learn along the way that these phases work because you believe them. And same thing with alcohol. You believe alcohol is lies. It says, this is what you need. This is what life is like. You can't live without me. And no logic is going to help. What you need to do, or what I did, is prove to yourself that you can live without it and get help. Get some kind of support and some kind of help. Obviously, detoxing is completely dangerous. Should always be done at a doctor. And again, that doesn't go for many other things. Like overeating is a big, big issue. Absolutely 100% believe that it's a big issue and it's difficult for people. The chemical dependency is not there. Now, is there other stuff in that one? Yeah, I don't know what I would do if I had to have a little alcohol every day, because they have to have food every day. But again, the chemical dependency part's not there, so it's a little bit different. And when you start to understand that what we are dealing with is emphatically 100% chemical dependency and chemical dependency alone, that's why you can't quit drinking. That's why it needs to be off the table for life. That's why I don't mind sitting here saying, I will never have a glass of wine again. I'll never have a whiskey again. I used to love whiskey. Never have a cognac again. Never have a beer again. And we start to look at this and say, well, how are these people doing it? Like, how many of you guys that are newly sober, you're like, you guys sound nuts. I mean, seriously, not for the rest of your life? Yeah, because I know what it does, and it's not worth it. And it's the little things that you tell yourself that's going to help you stay sober. Like I tell myself, back when I was first sober, I would tell myself, well, why do I need it? Like I've had more alcohol than the average 10 people, probably 20 people. Do I really need to try it? Like I know what wine tastes like. They all pretty much taste the same. They just have different price tags on them. That's it, right? And beer is like, okay, yeah, there's some new ones. There's some interesting ones. Can you live without it? Yeah, you can. But you learn that the little things you tell yourself, I don't drink anymore. I don't need to. I'm okay. Different things like that. What are your thoughts? What are the things that you told yourself when you were getting sober that helped you?
I told one of the biggest ones was I just told myself I never have to drink again. I did have to remind myself a lot. And, I still do occasionally. I have to remind myself that if I take a drink, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole again. And one of the biggest things that the alcoholism will do is it gives kind of this built-in forgetter Like I forget those bad times. I forget that every single time I stopped and I started again, it just went back to the same stuff I was doing. I was drinking the same amount, which was way, way too much, or I was drinking more every single time. Now, that was my experience. And then I have to also look at other people's experience and what they talk about. And their story is exactly the same. Talked to people that have been sober for 20 years and they took a drink and they did not have good stories. They said they were right back to where they were when they stopped, and that and then it got worse. And not one person that's ever had time in sobriety that has started drinking again has ever told me that it was okay. And maybe there's somebody out there, but I've never met anyone that has had that experience. It's always gotten worse. And that's one of the main things I have to remind myself. And the other thing that I've talked about on many of our webinars is just the gratitude of being sober, the gratitude of just being aware. I'm here all the time. I'm here for my family. I'm here for my friends. I can do whatever I want at any time of day. I mean, I couldn't I couldn't go to the store to go shopping. Well, in the end, I couldn't go to the store ever because I was constantly drunk. But talk about going at 10 p.m. No way. I can go anytime now, and just be grateful for those little things that I have now. I have the energy. When I wake up, I can do whatever I want right when I wake up. I don't have to shake the cobwebs out or anything. I'm ready to go. I usually get a cup of coffee first, but that's a whole different video. But I have to I, I tell myself those things is just gratitude that I can't even have one. Now, do I have the attitude of that I can't drink forever? Well, that's in my mind. I can't drink forever. I can never have alcohol again, but it's not something that I sit there and focus on. I don't have to focus on that. I focus on I'm not drinking today. Not going to drink tomorrow. It's just not part of my makeup anymore. And for any of you that are in early sobriety, that may not be an easy thought process to get, but it's something that will come around when you finally got enough sobriety. Then you can start to think that way. Now, are you out of the danger zone? No, you still have to be careful. There's still going to be triggers in your life. It may go through something difficult in your life, or it might be a celebration. It may come out of nowhere, that craving, or just the chance to take a drink, and you may accidentally take that drink, and you just stop again, stop right away. But I can't even take one because I know that that's what's going to happen is I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. I've known people that have started again and they took a couple drinks and they maintained. And maybe some of you have had this experience as well as you've gone months, year, couple years, no problem, drinking socially. I only drink, a couple times a week. But if they were dependent on alcohol, it did get back to where they were before. And for most of them, it got worse. And that's something that I have to be aware of. And the the one thing when I've getting to this point of alcohol, it really comes down to a simple thing. And Marcus has just said it, and that was alcohol is off the table. It's just not a choice anymore. It does nothing for me. So why? I can romance that beautiful glass of wine on the veranda overlooking the vineyards. It's beautiful, but I don't need that glass of wine to do that. I ride my bike there now and I can still get the same views. So it's a good thing.
Hmm. And Megan says she relapsed after 4 years of sobriety, lost all her support, stopped working on recovery, drank over some family issues. And I get what that's like. I get what it can be like to feel like you've lost everything that you worked for, but you really didn't. Like the 4 years of recovery is still something that you have. And I believe that what we need to do is go back to that and keep doing what worked. Keep focusing on what worked and what got you there.
Yeah.
Because that stuff still works. You just did something on top of it that didn't work, right? And you got to understand that, like, when you get your mind straight and clean of alcohol, it's all then dealing with stuff as it comes to you. And it's interesting because, just last night was something that I would have drank over before. I had a rough time, and I probably would have been drunk by now. It's 12 o'clock here. I would have been a couple of sheets to the wind. And now it's like, wow, I'm actually surprisingly calm in these things, and I'm able to take them as they come and look at life as it is. And it really comes down to changing your perspective on what you want and what you desire. Because I think it's funny, because there's a talk I listen to all the time as part of my marketing business, and just because I find it fascinating. It's a documentary that was done like 2002 or something. It's an old documentary. It's called The Century of Self. And it talks about how Sigmund Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, came to America back in like the 20s. And he took what Sigmund Freud, which some philosophers and psychiatrists call him sick man fraud, because some of his stuff's a little weird. It's like, bro, you might want to get your head checked. He's like, sir, I check heads for a living. Well, you might want to check yours. But at any rate, he was talking about how Eddie Bernays came to America and adapted the idea of desires and wants and subconscious cravings to marketing, right? And he did it in the cigarette marketing. He did it in alcohol marketing. All kinds of different marketing, and he actually became the president's PR guy, and he was a big deal because his stuff worked. And it worked because instead of selling a car, he was selling what you are going to feel like and who you are going to attract with that car.
Yes.
So he was looking at the subconscious stuff. And in life, somewhere along the line, we got that message, because the idea of that documentary is, we live in a consumer culture. We are trained to be good little consumers and buy stuff and shut up and do what we're told. That's what life in the Western civilization was brought about to be. And so we start to look at this and be like, okay, how does that affect us as alcoholics? Well, what happens in our life once we get sober is we still have that idea that we need to get what we want when we want it because we want it. Right? Like, that's what we want. Oh, I want some candy. Let's go get some candy. I want this. Let's go get this. I want people to act and be the way I want them to be. Why are they not doing that? And we start to look at that and say, well, who made us the king? Who says that I need to get what I want and what I need just because I want it and just because I feel like I need it? Nobody. And you know what's funny? Me and Terry have been through the ringer, and that stuff doesn't really matter. You get the new car, it's like, oh, hey, yeah, I like it for like a week, and then I'm bored. But that was something you hyped up about for like 2 years. It wears off after a week because you're like, big deal. Doesn't really matter. And you start to realize that life doesn't have to be according to what I want. And this is what they talk about in recovery, which is living life on life's terms, taking things as they come. Realizing that you're not the only one on the planet with things happening to you. Right? I remember when all this stuff happened in 2020 and 2021. Oh, this happened to me. I lost my job. Yeah, so did 2 million other people. But, the universe singled you out. No, it didn't. It's ebbs and flows of life. And I look at it this way, because if I can't choose the simple fact of where I'm born, I mean, think about this for a minute. You can't choose where you're born. Some guy's born in India with nothing. He has to go through a heap of garbage all day to get enough copper to get something to eat. That's his life. Why was he born into that? And I was born into some fancy house in America. So if I can't choose that, then I look at it and say, well, life is a series of ebbs and flows. Some people get, some people don't get. Yeah, there's one Bible verse that makes sense. Some of them don't, but this one makes sense. And it was, it rains on the just and the unjust alike. So when you go around thinking the bad things should happen to bad people and good things should happen to good people, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it's completely different. And we start to understand that life is and we are part of it, right? So like when Megan says she got in a hard time because her daughter wanted to call the stepmom. I can understand how that would be difficult. And I also understand that you can change the perspective on it, and maybe hopefully that stepmom is a decent person, and you could be like, hey, you know what? Cool, she's got a backup. My dad always said that with me. He's like, I'm glad I got a backup. Now, that backup happened to be not a good person, but at any rate, the thought was there and it was decent. But again, that helps. Like one of the things that helped me with abuse in my life was realizing it's not me. That abuser would have done that to someone else. It's like a conveyor belt. It'd be whoever is there. That person is an abuser. And then when you think, oh, why did it happen to me? It didn't. That guy bad, you were in the path. That's all there is to it, right? And we go through our life looking at why did this happen to me? Why does this go this way? Why does it go that way? When in fact, it's like it has nothing to do with that. Life is happening around you.
Yeah.
And then you join in and you realize there's a lot of good. There's some hurt. But overall, you go through and I don't have to drink anymore because now I have a philosophy of like, hey, it's not happening to me. It's just happening and I'm here.
And it's not an easy thing to just change your mind like that, but it can be done, and just doing it slowly. I wanted to address a couple of comments though. Search one, thank you so much. Congratulations on 4 years of not drinking, and I'm glad that we were able to help you with your show, with our shows. That's great. And then Megan, I wanted to mention just one thing. You had mentioned that you lost your support when you started drinking too, and that's one thing that's interesting with the 12-step programs and AA. You stop going to a meeting, and you might get a call from somebody if you've exchanged phone numbers. But a lot of times when people just start drinking again, they're just okay. No more calls, no more support, nothing like that. I'm not saying anything bad about it. It's just kind of how it works, because the people there, they're trying to stay sober, and hanging out or trying to, or hanging out with people that are drinking is probably not a good idea for them. So it's a difficult thing to deal with, definitely. Um, Tater Boy, you had asked a question: how long does it take for things to change or get better when you're off it? So when you stop drinking, and well, I got to be honest, things got better the minute I stopped drinking. After I went through detox. So, you can't say really, I can't really say the minute, but after the detox. However, I still had a lot of problems. I had a lot of physical problems. My mind was very foggy. It took time. It took months to really start to clear things out. But what changed for me was that change in the attitude, as far as I don't have to drink again, and I don't feel like I have to drink again. Yeah, there's cravings here and there, but right now I'm able to keep them under control. And that came from talking to other sober alcoholics, working a program, and really concentrating on trying to change my perspective towards life, towards alcohol, and starting to develop this life. Other things I had to set aside, like most people, most alcoholics, I'd done damage. I've damaged relationships and legal problems and money issues, and all that stress was still there when I got sober. But I didn't try to tackle it all at once. I just tried to take it slow, work on my sobriety, and do what I could, not being too hard on myself, but realizing that my sobriety is my responsibility. And that's what helped me a lot. Dave says, play the tape back. That's another thing that I did, was remind myself what happens when I drink. Playing that tape back, nothing good happened. It just all got worse, especially at the end, and that helped me a lot. But it really depends on what you got going in your life. Toady boys, who I'm talking to, it might take quite a while, and that's a difficult thing, because alcohol gives us this instant satisfaction, and if we're really dependent on it, it takes a lot of time to start to get satisfaction in life. When you're sober, sometimes it can take a real long time because we've done so much damage to our lives and relationships and things like that. But so it's important to try to search it out and search out solutions. And our program talks a lot more about that at talksober.com. Definitely talks about changing that perspective towards life. But there's also the AA. Try it. Try everything to get sober. Definitely.
Absolutely. And congrats to all the sober people. And if you're still struggling, congrats for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
thank you everybody for showing up today. Appreciate seeing you all. If you guys want some more information and more help, we do have a program at talksober.com. There's some free stuff on there too. You can go over there on the Should I Go to Rehab Now tab. You can click on that, and there's a little Am I an Alcoholic self-test there. That's free. And go check it out. You can join our Facebook group. We have lots of people that are working on sobriety there that have great advice and can share some what works there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Absolutely. So talksober.com. We'll see you guys next week. Stay sober. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.